Hi everyone. Glad to see you're all here. Make rocket ship go now. I'm Robert Ogilvy, Executive EQ Coach. You have stumbled upon another edition of the Leadership Lunchtime live stream. So today we have part two of what is emotional intelligence and how can it help you as a leader. Okay, so we talked over four of the competencies last time. We'll talk about the other four this time. So last time we talked about the two self-awareness and the two motivational competencies. Now we're going to be dealing with the four kind of tactical day-to-day level competencies. So in the 6 seconds model and the SEI, the SAY model, that is navigate emotions, uh, applying consequential thinking, intrinsic motivation, and the last one is exercising optimism. Okay, so let's talk about what these are and why they help us. And again, the reason why it makes sense that they would develop better ways to measure emotional intelligence is that we don't want something that is just a fixed personality trait proper which can't develop, right? Because if we were doing some kind of HR or org effort then and we found something that was immalleable, something immutable, something we couldn't change, it would just be a team design or an org design issue, right? You have this very pessimistic view of people and what can't change, and then it's just somehow structurally design the right box around them or something like that. No, it's not that. There's lots that can develop, right? And that's why it's important to measure this stuff. In fact, actually, you can measure and remeasure every 6+ months. Now, I will say, as a person that already has uh, developed competencies in certain areas, they won't change that much unless you put a lot of effort to it. And again, you're still dealing with your kind of base results here, but they really can change, right? So that's what's great about this. These things can develop, and it's about the emotional habits you have in place. Okay, so let's just dive into it. Navigate emotions and consequential thinking. Navigate emotions is the degree to which you can harness emotions as a strategic resource is the way they frame it. I like to think of it as take wind from emotions, whatever the emotions, yours or others around you, and particularly in a strategy context, what I tend to see with navigate emotions is that the people who can really, even when the agenda, even when the big strategy they thought they knew, even when they're expecting a shot, the people that can still draw wind and energy from that situation, they have really good navigate emotions. Yours truly has rather high navigate emotions in pattern recognition, right? So I'm this fast ideas guy that can quickly kind of spot patterns and I can adapt to all kinds of situations. Love it, right? Um, and that's part of what navigate emotions allows us to do. Whatever emotions might come up, we can work with them, right? Um, so what would be an example of low navigate emotions? If someone on like a chronic level can't deal with change, I mean that's probably a sign that their navigate emotions is not very good. And to the point of never wants change or wants an inordinate amount of structure and stability, right? They would probably have low navigate emotions. Pure speculation, but if you think of someone who might be um, like severely autistic or something and might have to do like a lot of self-stimming or something, and they need a very structured environment for them to be able to thrive, right? That's probably neither here nor there because they would be such outliers in this model that it's relevant anyway. Consequential thinking. Okay, so this is about not just how far you can see, so it's weighing risks and rewards, but it's also the self-discipline to follow through on that, right? So people that are good strategists tend to have this, but it also, the more you can understand those risks and rewards, the more you can self-manage your own behaviors around it, right? Which can be a great thing, right? I mean, in that sense, like a lot of our best leaders, it's not just like they're kind of warm and fuzzy in the moment. They have incredibly good consequential thinking. They can see really far out what's going to happen and what things are worth and not worth doing, right? This might feel sometimes like they have a very big long-term view, or just overall, you could even, there's a certain sense of efficiency. Well, like, what should we even bother putting effort in, or what step by step is something that is worth doing, right? So that would be all be consequential thinking. If someone had really low consequential thinking, that would feel like, yeah, they can't plan, and it probably means they don't manage risks, right? I will say it's like my consequential thinking is good, but my navigate emotions is great. So Bobby would much prefer to jump in and learn and break shit and try shit as opposed to like, Bobby, you didn't follow the plan. Like, whatever plans. And so you can see how as a system then they start to become interconnected. Which ones are you using a lot? Which ones are you using less so? And you think one can compensate for the other. Okay, so next two. Intrinsic motivation. This is basically grit and goal setting. It's about how well you can focus on a particular goal and get it done and grit through issues. You could think of it as in that way related to willpower, force of will, right? I find, in Myers-Briggs terms, people that are strong J's, particularly IJs, tend to have pretty good intrinsic motivation, right? They can kind of force power through things. And what are the two major facets of grit? Well, it's perseverance, as well as, so they use different terms for this, but you could call it enthusiasm or passion. And it could be for a particular area or a particular kind of goal you're trying to see through. So a lot of that comes out then in intrinsic motivation. So the good thing about intrinsic motivation, you know, in nerdy the D&D terms, it's that willpower point that you can spend to pass any check. The bad thing is that, hey, if you're in a situation where you need to keep spending willpower after willpower after willpower, grit after grit after grit to get through, newsflash, that's not a situation where you can thrive, right? That will not make you resilient. That will not allow you to flourish over time, right? And then the last one we'll jump into here is exercising optimism. It's optimism. Um, so, it might be more obvious to say something like, oh, well, of course, hope is useful, right? Hope is indicative of our emotional intelligence. Okay, so that's part of it. But think in a very earthy, tactical sense, the amount of options, the amount of choices that you can see before you is going to relate to how resilient you are in terms of what's possible and how you're going to survive, right? If you don't see any choices in front of you, oh man, that the situation you're basically stuck in is going to suck a lot. If you can always see lots of choices and help other people see lots of choices, that gives you a lot of freedom, a lot of choice, a lot of hope. It helps, and actually, so the main reason we want optimism is that it's a resiliency factor. It is the damage reduction which buffers us against the day-to-day stressors of life and puts things in perspective, right? So one of my futurist allies out of Toronto, Maggie Grayson, she's a fantastic futurist. She has literally the best optimism, like top quintile optimism that I've ever seen, right? So she's incredibly nimble at and like, and not just in some peppy positive way. That's not her, but it's like the pictures and images that she not only that she can draw, but she can help other people draw in terms of the future that's not possible. Because there are no facts about the future, people. There are no facts about the future. Um, it's yeah, it's very life affirming. It's very positive. There's lots of choice and option. Okay. So again, this is the other half, the part two of all the different EQ competencies. And again, different systems will describe this in different ways. I think one of the systems describes it as much as, oh, well, there's actually 15 different of these. I think in that one, what they're actually mixing up, I guess I'll take a second to say this now. So when we're talking with these 8 EQ competencies, these are like the pure competencies, if you will, and then they can combine in different ways depending on the situation. But then when we talk about success factors, and high level, those success factors are just effectiveness, relationships, quality of life, and well-being. Those are more like your performance variables, your earthy outcomes, right? So, and if someone wasn't trained in this, I don't need to train someone in some EQ model. Just be like, how are your relationships doing? How effective do you feel at work? How healthy are you, right? Those are natural earthy questions. And then you can also add on more success factors if there's a particular context, a particular outcome we're dealing with. Like there's added success factors to look at things like agile and change readiness, to look at like how you're doing in terms of influencing people and effectiveness in sales. There's a whole range of them. There's some that are starting to get more into the team end of things, some that are starting to deal with emotional and spiritual balance and kind of what you're focusing on and how that's relating to how you're developing as a person. But anyway, so you could create success factors for whatever niche context you're dealing with, right? So you can imagine that the kinds of things that I'm very interested in are with executives, with issues of business strategy and with issues of innovation, right? We're dealing with new products and technology and what's worth making and what possible futures do we want to build and design for ourselves and our organizations. Those are the things which really interest me, right? So again, the good thing about EQ is that these competencies can actually change. We can measure and remeasure them every 6+ months. So you might want to get in a habit once or twice a year of doing these. I would like to see actually this stuff replace the annual performance review, which sucks. No one likes it. We know it needs to change. And I think EQ was the way to do that. I tagged Joshua Friedman in the description just to shout out to him because him and Annabelle Jensen are the founders of 6 Seconds. total pros. And really since the past 6 months since the pandemic, they've been killing it. They're doing like 3 webinars a day, getting people into this stuff. And Joshua's big goal is to bring emotional intelligence to a billion people, right? A seventh of the world. Wouldn't that be amazing, right? So think about how that could apply in your organization. All right, I'm Robert Ogilvy, Executive EQ